Hey, welcome. I'm so excited. We are here today with Leia LeMaster Horton, and I am so excited. We're talking about test prep. And you may think, oh, I don't need to know about test prep. We're not going to take any tests. It's totally fine. We already have to do our testing at the end of the year. But you need to listen to this because you might feel differently by the time we're done here. Because Leah is so amazing. She is well known across the homeschooling world. She speaks in tons of conventions and homeschool conferences and does a lot of podcasts. And she really is an expert on helping parents prepare their kids and helping kids prepare for taking these SATs, the PSATs, the ACTs, all the things. And she also helps with scholarships too, which is amazing because they do go together. They open up a lot of doors. We're going to talk more about that. But I'm excited to have Leah here with you today because this is something we haven't talked about before on our podcast. And I have literally been searching for somebody for a while to be able to share with you about these test preps because I used to teach that in the classroom about taking SATs and things like that, but I was not an expert at it by any stretch of the means. I was just using materials provided by College Board. If you know College Board, they are the ones that put on SAT, PSATs. Leah had met her just recently through another friend of ours, and she's absolutely amazing. And we think what a same line of thinking here. And she's also a veteran homeschooler. She's homeschooled for a very long time, and she has lots and lots of experience with working with homeschool parents and kids, teaching them and helping them along the way. So, Leah, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you with us. Can you just share a little bit about what you love about teaching kids and helping parents through this whole test prep and scholarship world, and why you're so passionate about it right now?
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to be here, Cammie. Thank you so much for the invitation. I homeschooled for 18 years in Orlando, Florida, and I ended up realizing, hey, I really, once you teach algebra 3 times over, I'm really good at this. This is something that's clicking for me. I also used to teach Latin for 14 years. I homeschooled and taught at a small Christian school for a little while. So my God gave me the opportunities through the things that I was teaching my own children to equip me to be ready. I was very fortunate to help my own 3 have those high test scores, earn full tuition scholarships. And then my homeschool friends were like, hey, can you tutor my child? Can you tutor my child? And then it just snowballed into the business. So I've been doing it for 11 years, been an educator for 25 years. I absolutely love being a test prep professional and a scholarship expert. I've been doing scholarship consultations with homeschool families for years and years as well, because I feel like there is a lot of misunderstanding or not knowing some of the things when it comes to the cost of college. And I'd absolutely love helping families that are dealing with that concern over getting the test scores to get into dream school, and then answering that question, oh, can we afford that dream? So I do. I feel
Absolutely.
it's such a pleasure to be able to work with the homeschool community. I speak at homeschool conferences across the country. I've been doing that for years. This is my first year being asked to be a featured speaker with the great homeschool conventions nationwide. And I speak on all things test prep, scholarships, entrepreneurship, and at the Florida Homeschool Conference, it's called FPEA, I'll be speaking on how to rock an interview. So
I
that
love
is
that.
that is just my pleasure. And then I also have the joy of getting to speak at college fairs across the country as well. I've had the joy to speak at Columbia University and Johns Hopkins, Clemson, UCLA, UC Berkeley, just some top schools that are, for high school parents and teens, because it's showing off the school, and speaking on all things test prep and scholarships. So the families understand what is test prep? Is it needed? Like, why do we need those scores? What can we do with them? How does it affect our financial aid packages? By the way, what is the national average for financial aid packages? What is the national average for those student loans, right? Just kind of all things, understanding the finances that go hand in hand with that. And my husband also worked at a private Christian college for 4 years, Covenant College, shout out, Lookout Mountain, Georgia. And so I learned a lot about the college admissions process during those years as well.
Gosh, it's going to be such a mystery for all of us too, even those of us that went through it as, as students ourselves. But I love this. And a lot has changed. A lot really has changed. So, in thinking about SAT, PSAT, ACT, as homeschoolers, we often feel like, there's some anxiety around that. We're not sure if it was even for us. Like, what if our kids aren't going to college? What do we even need to take them? So can you tell us just what really matters here? What is the purpose, and should we really be focusing on this at all?
Okay, great question. I feel like I'm a student advocate. At the end of the day, I want the student to have more options. I think the student's going to have a lot more options when you go ahead and get those scores, because things change. They might think, "Oh, I don't want to go to college," or I don't need that. But then they change their mind second semester, senior year of high school. So at the end of the day, what's going to give the student more options is to plan ahead and realize that a test prep journey is usually 5 months from start to finish. And I have a lot of families reach out and say, "Hey, when should we start test prep?" But really, a better question is, when should your student reach their highest score ever? And the answer to that question would be October of their junior year. And the reason I say that adamantly is the fact that when a student, right, takes their PSAT, which is not just a practice exam. A lot of families think that. It's not. It actually is the exam that is tied to the National Merit Scholarship, where there's not only money behind that. By the way, there's 3 levels of becoming a National Merit Scholar: finalist, semi-finalist, and commended. And many colleges will give additional scholarships based on being one of those 3 levels. I know Liberty University gives full ride scholarships for National Merit finalists, but they also give money for semifinalists and commended as well. But so it's important to realize that that test prep journey usually starts spring semester of 10th grade, so that they have time, so they have buffer, right, to prep, get to the point where they're scoring their highest, and score high both on the real SAT as well as the PSAT, October of their junior year. Now, if you're thinking, now, why should we worry about the senior getting the scores on the books, right? Or a junior, which is what I'm hoping for, a rising junior to reach their highest score October of junior year, is because there are some full ride scholarships available December of their junior year. So as a scholarship consultant, I want all students to start going after scholarships starting December of their junior year. So my absolute favorite scholarship is called the President Coolidge Scholarship. Do you know of that one?
No.
Yeah. Well, it's a full ride. And what that means is full tuition and room and board. So as I mentioned earlier, I was very fortunate to help my own 3 children earn full tuition scholarships. But we still had to pay room and board, which is about $15,000 per year, by the way, or more. But the thing about the President Coolidge Scholarship, where you apply December of your junior year, is the fact that it's full tuition and room and board to any college the student chooses.
Wow.
Over the top awesome, right? But here's
That's
the deal. I want every single junior to go for that scholarship. Okay, I don't want people to go, "Oh, well, it's really competitive. There's only 2 overall winners." Well, yeah, that is true. However, they also have what's called Coolidge Senators. And there's 100 winners of that. They win $1,000. They get a trip to Vermont to network with the who's who of tomorrow. And I have helped multiple homeschool students become Coolidge Senators. Okay. I haven't helped anybody win the overall scholarship yet until your child, because they they deserve it, right? So you homeschool mom
Absolutely.
out there listening to it, you need to know your child is awesome. They should apply for this scholarship. It also is the fact that the process of applying is what's valuable. By December of their junior year, I want them already have had scores on the books, right? Hopefully high PSAT scores as well as SAT scores so that they can just be done. Test prep journey's 5 months, usually from start to finish. That's already a journey. And I feel like it'd be great to hopefully reach their highest score by fall of junior year so they can move on to other things like going after scholarships. But it also helps them realize, to go after that President Coolidge scholarship, I need letters of recommendation. So you need to go ask for them, right? You need a student resume. So they need to go write it, right? There's just pieces to the puzzle that students need to be able to start what I hope for, which is going after one scholarship per week starting December of their junior year. So they can do that for a year and a half while they're still living with mom and dad or their guardian. And here's the thing. When they get into the habit of it, it doesn't take that long, right? You can go after 50 scholarships. You are not writing 50 essays. You're just tweaking roughly 3 and tailoring them to the prompt. But it's important to go ahead and do the test prep journey first so that you're going to be a competitive applicant.
That makes so much sense. And I love also how they're already gaining the material. They're just gathering all the materials and creating those materials so that they can just hit the go button when they need to and to just scoop up all the money that they can. Because I know there are some scholarships that don't have essays too, which is pretty amazing. And then, most of them do. But yeah.
Yeah, I will say this. Yes, that is true, but not very many. Like
Okay.
99% of the scholarships have an essay that is written.
Okay.
So in that 1% of the, no essay, you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of students going after that. So your likelihood of winning is very small. So the thing about going after scholarships is go big and go small, right? Go for the national big ones, go for Coca-Cola, right? Go for those, but also go for your local scholarships as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love that. And, something I know we talked about is that preparing them to get into college is good. But see, because most of our parents do want our kids to be college ready, right? When I talk to parents, they say, like, I just want them to have options, like you said, which I love. And so I have seen students, and I know you've seen a bajillion students that have changed their mind at the last minute and said, oh, wait, I want to be a veterinarian and I need to go to college. So it's different when, and then they're either prepared for it or they're not. So I think it's a good option to give them, if your child will, maybe they'll change their mind. You just want to get them prepared. That is a good idea. But there are also other benefits to taking these tests. Even if your kids aren't going to go to college, one of the things that I used to tell my students is that it's really about your thinking. And it is about subject matter knowledge too, but it's also about your thinking. So can you talk a little bit about like the different benefits outside of just scholarships and college admittance that are within this test taking just mindset?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And I'll get into a methodology too, so y'all know how I suggest training for the exams. But as far as the benefit, I think one of the main benefits is for the student to have confidence in themselves and realize they are ready for the rigor of college. And so one of the benefits would be learning speed reading, which, by the way, I used to think that meant you read really fast. It doesn't. It means you understand the idea of the material in a faster amount of time. It really means you're skimming. You are chunking. You are not reading each and every word. And a really strong test prep program is going to teach speed reading and when to read and when not to read. Because students think sometimes that the reading and the writing language section means that, this is reading comprehension. Therefore, we should read every word and comprehend every word we read. No. No. The goal is the correct answer as fast as possible, right? So we teach strategies, right? Yes, I teach, I'm a skill-based teacher. At the end of the day, I teach skills, but I also teach a ton of test prep strategies so that students can know the shortcuts and know, strategies. Because I feel like tips and tricks, only get you so far. At the end of the
Right.
day, students need to know the concepts that they're being tested on. And it is beneficial for the student to learn what these skills are. I think whatever math class or, English class that they are in, right, whenever they're doing their test prep journey, it's really going to strengthen that a lot. As far as how I teach students, my method, which is a 5-month journey, so 20 weeks, if they're training once a week. Okay. If they're going to train twice a week, which is what I recommend, then you can be fully trained in 10 weeks. So I'm a premier coach, and what that means in my industry is that I've met certain key milestones of helping multiple students have significant score increases and get perfect scores. So I've had multiple perfect scores, and which is awesome and great, but those are hard to come by. So I just want to, between the two, what's more important between significant increases and perfect scores is to know that students can have significant score increases. And so I think that it's harder than families realize for the most part. A test prep journey, it's challenging. My program is rigorous, and I'll explain what it is. But I feel like it's important for the families to realize that it doesn't matter where you start. Okay. Because I work with a lot of homeschool families. Like 90% of all my clients are homeschoolers. And a lot of times they'll come to me and they're like, hey, my child's a 4-point whatever student. And oh, by the way, they took a practice test before and they scored like below national average. Why is that happening? And I just want you to know that the same thing happened with my 3 children, and they were straight A students. But I was like, why are they scoring at this level on these stupid tests, right? So here's the thing. Students can have those significant score increases. I would just want you to know the truth that the score range is 200 to 800. The national average for the math is around a 510 out of 800. That changes every year. That stat is based on high school graduating seniors. So it doesn't even have the scores for sophomores and juniors, just taking it for fun. And it's important to know that students start off with scores closer to 400 to 420-ish when they're first starting a lot of times. Okay. And that makes sense if you're like, okay, well, if the national average, right, for the math is 510, you would think a year earlier, their scores would be roughly 100 points lower. And they usually are. And so for homeschoolers, I do normally see the math is lower and the reading, writing, language skills scores are higher. And it's because a lot of times they're more well-read.
Yeah.
They read a lot, which is great. And that really helps with vocabulary, since vocabulary is a skill that is tested on the exam. So I do normally see that they're higher in that section. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where their scores are. I have seen students have significant score increases between 300 and 500 point score increases. And that's crazy. That is a crazy increase.
Yeah.
And I'm so fortunate and thankful that I've been able to help students have these really big increases. Again, that's not the norm, but it certainly is possible when they start a rigorous program and do what they're told to do, which is awesome because most homeschoolers will actually do the prep work in advance of class. So how mine works, and just to know the difference between most tutors and me, most tutors are going to assign a practice test section in advance, right? I do that too. Most people do that. And then with a different tutor, they're going to only coach the student for 45 minutes to an hour, and they're only going to coach the student through the problems they got wrong. Okay. That is what like 99% of tutors do. And that might sound like a good methodology, but let me tell you, it is extremely flawed. And here's why. It is a multiple choice exam, and students are randomly guessing all the time.
Yeah.
So they're getting problems correct, but they spent 3 or 4 minutes on it. They're getting problems correct, but they sort of know that skill, not really. They'll definitely miss it on the real SAT. They're getting problems correct, but they're solving it the long mathematical way where I could show them how to solve it in Desmos in 15 seconds. So a better method is referred to as overtraining, but that sounds negative. It's actually a good thing. So we're going to call it something different, but we're going to call it the better method. The better method is coaching a student through each and every problem, because it is so beneficial for the student to be coached through the problems that they got correct, right? Because I'm showing them a different method the majority of the time. I'm reiterating what is the skill that is being tested on this particular question, right? What is the concept the College Board is testing on this question? That's very beneficial. And the cool thing about the SAT is that they do test the same skills over and over and over again, right? And they have the same type of error patterns, right? And I coach all the exams, but I will say that when it comes to what exam to start with, I highly recommend starting with the SAT first, right? You can always jump ship and go to the ACT later. But here's why. Because of the fact that students take the PSAT fall of junior year, I want them to start with that SAT, because when you're prepping for the SAT, you are also prepping for the PSAT. It is the exact same skills.
Yeah.
Right? The PSAT is just shorter. It is not any easier. It is not an easier exam, right? And so I just want families to realize that in coming into that fall of junior year, when they're prepping for one, they're prepping for both, prep, turn around, take both exams in October. And this is what I found. When students know in advance that October of junior year is going to be a test-heavy month, they're fine with it. Take them out for a milkshake. They will be fine, right?
Yeah.
It's just when it's thrown on them at the last minute, they are not okay with that. But if that way, hopefully, train, take both exams, be done. But I will say most students take the SAT exam 2 to 3 times. That does tend to be the norm. Colleges will not know your score unless you tell them. Students are able to turn in scores. Like they're able to say, oh, I want these scores to go to my dream school, right? I don't recommend that. Different people have different opinions. I would never want to send my scores before I even know what they are to my dream school. Yeah, because students get a chance to do that at the very beginning of the exam. I'm like, no, you can do your touch points other way. Go visit the school. Call the admit. Like they count touch points, and I understand touch points. Those are very important. This doesn't have to be one of those, right?
Yeah.
I think that once you get the scores that you want, go ahead and then send them on to your school. Because I did hear about this not too long ago, that a student put their SAT scores on their student resume, but they didn't turn in the official scores before a scholarship deadline with that particular college. So I'm just letting you all that are hearing this know that once you get the scores that you want, right, that you're going to be using, get those official scores turned in directly to your school before any of their honors programs deadlines. So writing, your student score on their student resume doesn't count.
Right. Yeah. No, they need to have the official one for sure. I remember going to take I took the SAT twice, and then I took the ACT once, and I took it. I didn't really need it at the time. I wasn't planning on using it for I wasn't just going to a state school, and at the time you didn't need it. And so I just took it for fun, and I came home and canceled my scores because I was like, that's not going to go well. That's not going to be good.
Well, the thing about the ACT, and I want families to realize the truth of this, is that the math is the hardest for most students. And the ACT used to be 60 seconds per math problem when it was a paper exam. Now that it's gone digital, it's 67 seconds per math problem. But the SAT is 95 seconds per math problem. So that is significantly more time where students need it the most. And it's one of the reasons reasons I think that it's a good idea to start with the SAT, even if you're going to jump ship later, just so that you're prepping for one exam at a time and getting that benefit of the extra time on the math.
Yeah, one of the things that I love, and I heard a long time ago from another mentor of mine for homeschooling, she was saying that the taking that SAT, taking those tests is, even if they're not planning on going to school right away, even if they're not like, oh, I'm never going to go to college kind of thing, I think it's important for them to, and we are planning on having Kenyon take his too as well, because it is an important skill. It's just test
Mhm.
taking is important. Like, there are many jobs that you have to apply to where you're going to have to take a test. There's just a lot of places where that's going to come up. And just knowing, yes, I get that they take a state test, and I want you to talk about that in just a second. But I think it's an important skill for them to understand how the strategy, the thinking, and then some of the ways that they can do better, just like you said, so they can actually help themselves do better by studying and prepping beforehand. I think that's
Yeah.
huge.
For sure. I was going to mention, I homeschooled for 18 years and then got my master's of education, which I think is kind of funny, actually. But
Yeah.
I was able to go. My husband was working at the college, and it was such a pleasure. But during that time, I did learn something that really kicked in with me. And I have the pleasure, it's a gift from God, to be able to continue teaching each and every day. So I absolutely love it. But I learned about that fact that when students are learning a new concept, right, having an aha moment, or reviewing a skill they knew before but they'd sort of forgot, all of that is processing skills.
Yeah.
So if they're understanding how to read math in the moment, which means understanding how and why you go from one step to the next step in a math equation, that is all processing, which is way easier than what we want. What we want is retention skills. And you would think 1 week later, they'd still remember. And you know who identified that? Every homeschool mom's going, yeah, I know. This happens all the time. It's called the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. And Ebbinghaus was some sort of educational psychologist back in the late 1800s who identified how quickly students forget content. Really, anybody forget content. But the idea is this: if you are learning something new, right, you need to review it. They call it touchbacks. You need to review that, touch back on that material within 48 hours, right? Or you're going to start forgetting a certain percentage of it. And every student forgets at a different speed of forgetfulness. But I thought that was so insightful for me to realize that if we're trying to get to retention skills, as in 1 week later, can that student remember that concept and apply it on a brand new problem that's testing that exact same skill, right? We need time in between to review the baseline of the skill. Because we don't want to just test the students all the time, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure that they are on top of the concepts, that we are teaching the concepts, teaching the skills. And that's one of the reasons I have students on a diagnostic every day, just for 10 minutes. Get on, get off. And it's amazing math software. I absolutely love it. It's super cheap. It's only $25 a month and is very, very affordable. And we have a full self-prep program too. That's also very affordable, has 30 hours of content in there, test prep content, and or live tutoring. But I think what I like about our diagnostic software is the fact that students think that's test prep's really not. It's skill review. And here's why. The questions are too clear. Like, it's too clear to understand what the skill is, right? Unfortunately, right, the ACT and SAT test questions are sometimes wordy, sometimes worded confusing.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's not doing the math that is the hard part. It is being able to set up the problem. It's being able to go, yeah, I don't even know what they want me to do, right? A lot of students don't know how to do the setup, to set up the equation, right? So that they can then solve it. So I think it's important for students to learn test taking strategies because students are able to reach their scores a lot faster when they have a tutor helping them. Can test self-prep work? Yes, it can. However, for most students, they need the accountability that's going to
Yeah.
help them through it. Because what I see with self-prep is the student will take a practice test, they'll miss problems, and they don't necessarily know how to teach it to themselves
Oh,
of the ones
yes.
that they miss,
Yeah.
because they'll read the answer explanation and go, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm even more confused than before. So I guess I've seen it happen. I've been doing this for 11 years. And I think that the fastest way is to be coached through 10 practice tests is actually the industry standard. That's not something Leah's making up. Coaching a student through 10 practice tests takes 20 coaching sessions.
Mm-hmm.
My coaching sessions are 2 hours long. We do take a break in the middle of it, but like they're 2 hours long, both purposely and practically. Okay. They're 2 hours long purposely because the exam is 2 hours and 24 minutes.
I love
And
it.
I want students to get mentally tired and work through the burn. So I'm trained by ACT, I'm trained by College Board, part of the National Test Prep Association. And what I have found is that College Board even mentioned that students tap out at the end of the exam. That means, when tapping out means quitting a problem, like, in wrestling where I quit.
Absolutely.
It's in students care. They really do care. It's just in that one moment of time when they're mentally tired at the end of module 2 hard, and they look at a problem, they're sometimes think, yeah, no, and they just choose C and move on.
I do not care.
Yeah, I don't care about that problem. But here's the deal. I let students kind of like randomly guess on the software because it doesn't matter. The purpose of the
Right.
software is just to learn the base skill, right? But we have to take those skills and apply them with way harder problems. On a real practice test that's mirroring the exam, where we have our timer in the exact location, where we have the embedded Desmos in the practice tests, right? I don't want students to randomly guess and just spend 1 second on a problem, right? Because sometimes giving it that 45 to 60 seconds in, deduction kicks in, where we
Mm-hmm.
will get to the point where like, oh yeah, now I know what to do, right? Because I
Right.
just kind of sat on it for a second. But now that we can see the time, I can see the time on my end. On my digital practice tests, I can see how much time a student spends on a problem. And it's also good for parents to know College Board labels the questions easy, moderate, and hard. And why this is important to know is that it's now an adaptive exam. That happened March of 2024. And it just means that in Module 1 has all 3 levels, right? For every real SAT exam or SAT practice test, there's a certain number of the easy, certain number of the moderate, and certain number of the hard questions, right? So Module 1 has all 3 levels. Depending on how well the student does, they're either going to advance to Module 2 easier, that has more easy and moderate problems, or
Interesting.
what we want is they're going to advance to Module 2 harder, that has more moderate and hard problems. And as you can assume, the student that advances to Module 2 harder, right, and gets those harder questions correct are going to end up scoring higher. And so it's kind of good for the student to know, right, that we want to get through easy, moderate and hard. But that's also one of the benefits of the overtraining is the fact that you certainly don't want to be missing an easy and a moderate problem, right? Because you
Yeah.
just either went too fast or were not careful or you weren't rock solid in that skill. Because, I do have a lot of parents call me and they'll like, hey, my child is that straight A student. Why are they scoring national average or
Right.
below? And I just want to say that the reason that happens is because of the fact that when a student is in an academic class, doesn't matter if they're in school or homeschooled, if they are on chapter 9, say algebra 2, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
on chapter 9. If the student has read the chapter, reviewed the material, right, did the homework, all of that is fresh concepts. That just means that the student is more likely to do well on that chapter 9 exam, brain dump, right, versus a college entrance exam that is truly testing skills kindergarten through 12th grade.
Right.
And I'm not lying when I say that, because 20% of the math is arithmetic. And I mean way more than addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? I mean volume, area, circumference, mode, median, mean.
Right.
And this is what I see, and it's kind of surprising. A lot of students are missing skills they know when they first start test prep.
That
For
makes sense.
example, median. I see it all the time. And it's because, now, just as a quick reminder, because I'm sure your student probably knows this, but if I give them a list of 5 numbers and I ask for the median, usually we'll know to reorganize them from least to greatest and choose the number in the middle. Okay, that's the median. However, College Board tests that skill with a box plot. And so often students haven't seen a box plot.
Interesting.
Since 7th grade, right? So they have forgotten a detail, a very important
That would trip
detail.
me up.
That the vertical line, right? That vertical line, the up and down line, represents the median in the box plot. And that's just an example of, and I see it all the time, but of students, missing a skill they know because of the question. What does that tell us in general? That tells us that students need more questions that are like College Board type questions. That's why the industry standard is to coach a student through 10 practice tests, because that way, which is 20 coaching sessions, because we're either on math in one class, and that already takes 2 hours, right? And then a different class is going to be the English, and that's also a 2-hour class. And so before coming to class, all they need to do is the prep work. If we're on math, it takes 70 minutes of prep work before coming to class. And if we're on English, it takes 64 minutes to do the prep work. And then the only other thing that I require, so it's very doable, is what I'm trying to say. The only other thing I require for tutoring with me is that they are on my math software diagnostic. That's currently required because it's so good. There's a grammar one too, but the math one's required. Again, it's super cheap. It's only $25 a month. But what I like about that, because they're 2 different things. One's a practice test, one's, skill review.
Right.
What I like about the skill review is that it also is adaptive in nature. But if a student misses a problem, I want them to read the answer explanation. Okay. And then 4 or 5 questions later, it's going to ask that exact same question again. But this time, it switches out the numbers. And I absolutely like that, because when it asks that question again, I want the student to remember the procedure.
Yeah.
Not the previous
skill.
numeric answer, right?
Yeah,
and so it is so rock solid. And I think I just have also some great tools. Like, do I think I'm a good teacher? I do. I really, really do. But I also know I have an amazing platform that holds great digital practice tests.
Hey, man, great teachers have great
software.
tools.
So I feel very fortunate.
Absolutely. Great teachers always have good tools. This is so exciting. I love the intention in what you do. I love how you are really taking kids down a thinking strategy instead of just trying to figure out what their gaps are. You're trying to just give them the whole breadth. And that's really, really important for them to be able to adapt to whatever's in front of them at the time. So that's exciting. I love this. I am so grateful that we are connected. Thank you, Lisa. And and I am excited to share more of you with this audience for sure. And so can you tell everybody, for whoever might want to reach out to you, how do we get in touch with you? And I know that you have a special gift for us today on really dialing in your SATs and improving your scores from 100 to 300, even more points. So how do we get in touch with you and get that resource?
Absolutely. My website is just hortontestprep.com. My email address is info@hortontestprep, because my name, Leia, is spelled different, Leia. And I was like, some people here spell my name wrong. So let's just go with info@hortontestprep.com. And if they want to follow me on Instagram, it is my full name, which is, again, Leia, Leia, LeMaster Horton. So on Instagram, it's just my name because I'm kind of branding my name. But then on Facebook, it's just Horton Test Prep. So if you want to follow me on Facebook as well. And then are you linking the freebie?
Yes, we are.
Underneath?
Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Because families ask me about the timeline, starting timeline, how do we go about deciding what should our test score goals be? I address that in the download as well, so that families are realizing, hey, these scores mean something because they're also going to come into play with our financial aid packages, which,
Right.
by the way, some schools tell you that they do that. Other schools just do it and they don't tell you. So like University of Alabama is a great example for a state school that ties your financial aid package to your test scores, right? Christian schools like Liberty University does it. Covenant College does it. Just
That's
a ton
very
of
important
schools
to
do it.
know.
But at the end of the day, you can negotiate your financial aid package. I didn't know that until we got into it. So nobody had sent me the memo on that. But especially for private schools, definitely more of a private school than public schools. But the private schools, you can negotiate the financial aid package.
That's fantastic.
It's kind of good to know. But as far as that test prep, I really think that the how to raise your scores 100 to 300 points, it's really just starting early enough so that the student has time, so they have wiggle room, right? I recommend starting that spring semester of 10th grade or the summer between 10th and 11th, right? So that they have the time to develop the skills to be able to score high, because when they do score high, I want them to take those scores and do something with them. The thing that bothers me is that the national average is 20 years to pay off student loans, okay? And I want families to realize there are more than two options of either A, drain the family savings, or B, 20 years of student loans. And now that I speak at these college fairs and I say that in my presentation, I have had so many parents come up to me and say, hey, that might be national average, but it took me 33 years to pay off my student loans. And I'll tell you, my son graduated from a small private Christian college up in Boston. It's Gordon College. And his appreciation for the fact that he didn't have student loans didn't kick in until 6 months after graduating, when his friends all had to start their paybacks for their student loans.
All paying their student loans back,
which was roughly $450 to $500 per month. And then they started complaining about it, going, oh, I can't survive. Right. And that's when I get the phone call, Mom. Thank you for that,
Mom.
So much. Yes. I thought that was pretty funny, actually.
I love it. I love it. That's so amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Leah. I really, really appreciate all your insight. What a wealth of knowledge. I know that all of us are going to have to go listen to this over and over and over again, because there was so much information there. And be sure that you, as a homeschool parent, if you like it and you resonate with it at all, please like and share and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And it helps us get this information out to a lot more parents. And this is information that a lot of parents need to know. And be sure that you download Leah's free guide, because this is the best way to get started. Even if you're just checking it out, you're not really sure if this is the right thing for you, I think you're going to find some great information in there. In fact, I know you will. All right, you guys, this has been super amazing. I will talk to you again next week. Thank you, Leah.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye.